Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan. This is the morning Inside the Birds podcast we've been teasing that was supposed to really just be about some injury updates and not even some major ones. But not only do we have major injury updates, but we have a full-blown issue that we have to discuss as there's been a change of the defensive play caller for the Philadelphia Eagles that happened within the last 24 to 48 hours as the news broke that we have to get into here, Adam. So this is going to be a pretty detailed Inside the Birds podcast. And I got to say, we made our picks on Friday. Both of us picked the Eagles, but in light of this news, I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't blame myself. I wouldn't blame anybody who then might change their pick based on the information that we're about to discuss.
Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, it's been pretty quiet with the Eagles the last 2 years until this week.
Right.
It's technically it's next week now because it's Monday, but it's week 15 of 18, 17 game season. So yeah, oh boy, this is an odd one. This is certainly an odd one with the news to come out on Sunday. We'll discuss that, what we've heard, what we think, because when we did our reporting on Doug Peterson was canned and how that went down, the Press Taylor situation, we went on it. We did a special show. Go, here's what we're hearing. Other people reported as well. It was pretty cut and dried. It was over staffing. Okay. This one is weird. Like the timing of it's absolutely bizarre. This is the kind of thing you do after the season, but
yeah,
sometimes the Eagles do things and you scratch your head, but we'll get into it.
Yes. Now I have a favorite expression that you like to remind me of all the time that I may now have to amend. It used to be no team fires assistant coaches and staff when they make the playoffs more than the Philadelphia Eagles. And now this might have to be no team does that and does it when they're having the number one seed in the conference or or tied for the lead in the conference and leading the division like the Eagles. So it's kind of a crazy thing. The Eagles have this history of giving their fans sometimes some really bad vibes with some of the moves that they make and drawing a lot of criticism for it, but then being able to sort of hunker down and rebound. And this situation that we'll get into with Sean Desai, it is rare, but as you and I talked about before this show, there has been a couple of instances of things like this to happen to other NFL teams in the middle of the year that were having success. So we'll get into that as well. A lot to talk about. We will, of course, have our pregame show, Inside the Birds pregame live tonight from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock on the Inside the Birds YouTube and other socials. It's myself, it's Adam, it's Greg Cosell, it's Jason Avant. And then after the game, and boy, does this game suddenly have even more implications. After the game, it'll be myself, Adam, and former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor for Inside the Birds post-game live, usually around 11:30 p.m., depending on the time of the game. If you haven't checked it out yet, you got to get up to our Patreon channel. We had a great chat with John DeFilippo. Now, this chat happened before all the news went down and before we heard what we had heard. So we didn't get a chance to really talk to John about that because John and Sean Desai know each other and it could have been a topic. However, we had some really good stuff on what he thought about the Eagles offense coming out of the Dallas game and some of the issues and that has been facing that side of the ball. So definitely got to check that out. It's Inside the Birds. It's patreon.com/Inside the Birds. What else do we have coming up? Your Wednesday night chat and we'll
do another live. Yeah, we'll do another live stream. We got a chalk talk coming up with former head coach or personnel executive. And just on the flip script, this is one of the most detailed ones. We must have covered 10 different things.
Yeah.
We took questions from Patreon members, which are great. And we want to welcome Joe B as our newest Patreon member. And you get to ask your questions. We get him in there. Typically on offense, though, we don't really cover their. He does occasionally watch Eagles defense, but usually for a couple minutes. He watches their offense, but we do way more than their offense. We cover a lot of issues. We talk about the pass run ratio. When he was hired in 2016, what he thought about the Eagles, and then I don't know how it came up, but it was super cool. We learned a little bit more about the Philly special play, which we didn't know about.
Right.
Which was super amazing. And Yeah, you got to be a Patreon member to hear it. There's stuff that's not out there. Kind of blew me away with it. Pretty
I
cool.
know. I feel like every year we learn a little bit of a new layer to the Philly special story,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, it's the such an iconic play, but then the fact that we can keep adding to the mythology of it, and it's real, is fantastic. So again, that's patreon.com/inside the birds. All right. We're gonna get right into let's start with the Sean Desai news. We will talk about Jalen Hurts and the injury situation here. That was
Sure.
the original intent of the pod, but we have to talk about the news with Sean Desai. So the Eagles at 10-3 have decided that Sean Desai is not going to be on the sideline. He's going to be up in the box, and he's not. I know that there were some contrasting reports about this, but you and I have, from our sources, confirmed that he is not calling the plays either. Matt Patricia will be calling the plays, and I believe will be on the sideline. So it's almost like a flip flop there, where Matt Patricia is now technically, without the title, your defensive coordinator because he is the defensive play caller. It is odd. It comes at a strange time as the Eagles are 10-3. Yes, they've lost 2 straight games and given up some points in that process. And yes, their defense does rank very poorly in a lot of categories, Adam. But I will say, from how as we understand it, I know there's some curiosity about this. This was a decision that both Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman were both involved in. It wasn't, to our understanding, one or the other. I don't understand there was any headbutting over this. It sounds like the people at the top were pretty on board with making this change. So what would you like to add to that? Because I still find that it's a fascinating move for an organization that has been pretty healthy and functional since some of their issues going back to 2020, right? And the draft and all that.
Yeah, from the 2020 season, it's actually like I was saying earlier, it's been pretty quiet. So yeah, it sounds like from what you heard that Desai and would I guess GM Roseman would have, because they talk a lot. I mean, they're talking every day. So the only issue that I have with this thing is, so let's look at the timeline. I'm going to add a couple things here from what we've heard, but let's talk about the timeline. So Nick Sirianni, the Eagles head coach, has his press conference on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
He's asked by Tim McManus. I think it was the first question. I'm wondering if you are considering coaching responsibility changes starting the week, including potentially trying to take over play calling or giving the offense a spark. Now, I know the second part of the question is on offense, but the first part is from Tim, who still covers the Eagles for ESPN.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you're considering any coaching responsibility changes starting the week, including potentially trying to take over play calling of the offense to give a spark. He says no. Then Tim follows up, okay, what is behind that thinking? Nick says, quote, I feel good with the people that we have in the building. We're 10-3. We're in control of our own destiny, and we're going to keep rolling and finding answers for the people that we have. I thought nothing of it. Honestly, that's what you should say.
Mm-hmm.
And then Desai has his press conference as a defense coordinator, the title he still holds, by the way. So it's just, now, again, the timeline, this is what we know because this has to happen. Like when the first practice comes on Thursday, Patricia's obviously calling the plays. He has to because you have the game plan. Like
Mm-hmm.
he had his. It's not like they decided on Saturday, oh, you know what? Let's just go with Matt calling the plays. That doesn't happen that way. It never happens. It's to start the week. Now, again, we don't know. We've heard conflicting stuff. I would think just knowing how these things are, because you come in, right? They played Sunday night. They came in early Monday morning. They flew home Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
They get to the building. I'm sure they watch the tape on the way back, which a lot of coaches do, and they're Monday. To me, that's typically when if you're going to do this, if you have a Sunday game, you do it Tuesday before the players report for Wednesday's practice. In this case, because the guy's got to call it goes with any team, all 32 teams. If there's going to be a coordinator change, it has to be done before you practice. So it should have happened Monday, but we've checked into it. We've got conflicting information.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet the house that Patricia definitely was calling the defense on Thursday, because you can't start practice this week. Oh wait, we changed our mind. We're going to go with Matt on Saturday instead of Sean, instead
Right.
of doing it on Thursday. No, it doesn't work that way. So Patricia obviously had to be the play caller on Thursday.
Right.
I'm shocked that this didn't get out. Jay Glazer reported on Sunday on. I remember watching. I'm like, because on Verizon Fios, I'm like, what the hell? I just played it back. I'm like, are you serious? Like,
Yeah,
what? In season, they're 10-3.
right,
Wow.
right. So
So
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. And so to add on to that, a couple of things that we've heard. One is that, and some of this is a little bit, well, yeah, the Eagles defense has not been very good. It's had some moments, right? Miami, great moment. Second half of the Rams, great moment. Earlier in the season, you can probably find a couple of quarters or a half where you thought, I even thought the second half against Dallas, ironically, they weren't so bad, right? This past game against Dallas. Um, what was it? Wasn't it 21 points at the half? What was the final? I'm all of a sudden everything's escaping me.
But it was 31-13. They were down 24-6, but they didn't give many points in the second half.
Right, right. So there's some irony there. But one thing we've heard is that the concern about the overall efficiency of the defense and the scheme, right? What was going on with the defense on Howie's side, and probably more than just Howie, has been growing. It's been going on for not. It's not like this was just this week. They were like, man, things are bad. We have to make a move.
Yeah,
We were told that Howie was starting to ask questions about the defense, to get answers, to understand what was going wrong. And this was, beyond this past week. So obviously there was some sort of seed here that was kind of growing, to use a Nick Sirianni plant that was growing. There was some concern that goes back beyond this past week for the defense. And then veterans, there's a lot of veterans on this team, and you've even seen some guys come out and say some things. Kevin Byard, for example, I know he wound up tweeting a clarification, but he apparently talked to an athletic reporter from Philadelphia and was talking about how the secondary went to the coaching staff and wanted to take a little bit more ownership of the scouting reports this particular week against Seattle. And you've just heard the veteran, Josh Sweat came up and said, we got to start doing things to take care of our own. So one thing we've heard is that the veterans have at times expressed some concern. I'm not saying I don't know that they're throwing anybody into the bus, but when veterans speak, coaches listen and front office people listen. That's always been the case with the Eagles and a lot of teams. If certain I remember John Harbaugh, he's famous for when he took over the Ravens saying, like, I knew my first job as the Ravens head coach was to find out, what do I need to know about Ray Lewis to have him on board with what I'm trying to do? Because the Ravens are that influential. Yeah. That's an old Reuben Frank story that he has passed on to me many
interesting.
times.
So on this, see, the thing that's interesting is, they got off to a pretty good start with Desai, and his highlight this season clearly against the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great game that he called, and then after that, it was steadily downhill. But again, they're 10-3 now. The way I look at it this way, let's say assume that, again, it just depends when you speak with and what you hear, but let's say that it was a group decision, or because Roseman and Sirianni are talking every day, it just felt like, why would you wait, right? Are you going to wait till the end of the season, the playoffs? Do it now. But it's still hard to get over the 10-3 you're doing this. But as we go through this, and as the day on Sunday progressed, and you and I exchanged information, it sure seemed like, okay, I get why they're doing this now, but it's just so unorthodox. It's just typically not done when a team's really good. Now it gives obviously Patricia time here.
Mm-hmm.
What I find interesting is the Eagles actually announced it. They confirmed it by just putting it on Twitter or X.
Yep.
That tonight or on Monday, for the Seattle game, that Patricia's going to call the plays. They won't say pass this week. It's interesting. I don't know why they wouldn't. I don't know why they wouldn't do it. It's just, of course you're not. I've never heard of this where, okay, just for 1 week, we're going to give Patricia the play call, and then Sean's going to get it. It doesn't work like that. So obviously, this is going to be the case going forward.
It does put a lot of pressure on Matt Patricia now to go to a place where the Eagles historically lose, and to take a defense that has not played well recently and throughout most of the year, that doesn't have the only cornerback that was playing consistently good football for them, Darius Slay. I wouldn't call it Pro Bowl level play, but he was playing better than any other corner that they've had this year. Now they won't have him. We'll get into that, with the knee. It puts a whole lot of pressure on Matt Patricia to have to perform with all eyes on him and under some not so great circumstances. But one thing that is clear, and we were even told this, is that the Eagles think because of his big game experience and because of his resume, and he has coached and called plays, defensive plays in a lot of important games. Obviously, more for the Patriots than the Lions, where they were not in a whole lot of important games. But that experience will come in handy. I'm not sitting here telling you I agree or disagree with that. I'm just telling you that's what they feel because they're putting in that position, and we knew going back to the combine that Patricia was on this. It was Patricia and Mike Pettin, right? And they were never going to be able to get Mike Pettin from Minnesota because he's under contract and has a high title there. So it became Matt Patricia. But it does raise a lot of questions. Maybe we'll have some more answers. And again, we have the pregame show tonight, and we'll be addressing this. But my biggest question, Adam, is why don't you just fire Sean Desai? Not that I advocate firing someone, but I feel like you're actually embarrassing him now and neutering him. If you've decided Matt Patricia is better for what you have, if that's what you believe, right? And you're naming him the play caller, then why are you keeping Sean Desai there to sort of rub his nose in the shit? To be honest with you,
okay. In our reporting back to Combine, I'm not saying this is why they're not firing him, but he did sign a 3-year deal. He's running his version of Fangio, as a couple of coaching sources told us. Now, Patricia, his background is in the Belichick defense. Right. Yes, both of these are 34s, but they're the way they call it, it's still different. Okay, it's still different. It's way different in the schematics and so forth. So Patricia can't change the scheme. If he's a D coordinator next year, then he can do whatever he wants in the spring. But this is like a weird deal. I mean, that's the thing. Now, what coaching source told us from that side of the football is that here's what Patricia could do. He know because he's been with the team since February and obviously worked with him in the OTAs and stuff. So he's familiar with everything. I'm sure he sat in meetings. He said, look, he could call different. Like they have the pressure packages. He could maybe he changed it. Maybe he simplifies it because maybe that's something we've wondered when the secondary started regressing significantly, and you heard the players talk about the communication issues. Were there too many things on the D-backs plate? Were they just giving them too much volume? We see this around the league sometimes when the coaches will simplify because the guys are thinking out there too much. So maybe Patricia does that. Only he knows. But you cannot change a defensive scheme in season. It doesn't work that way. Or offense, whatever the case, you just can't. You can't do that. Right. But you could take whatever plays they have, and you take different. If there are 200 calls they have in their playbook, you take ones that they think they could do better, and also communications here. Matt, I'm sure Matt, because he's at every practice, has gotten to know the players. And he's going to have to talk to the senior leadership. What are they looking for? That's the thing here. Communication's really key. It's funny. It's not like they're saving their season. They're 10-3 for goodness sake. They clinched the playoff spot, by the way, on Sunday.
Congrats to the Eagles. Yay.
Yeah. I mean, not that that's what they want ultimately, but okay, they're in. Like we knew they're going to be anyway.
Right.
And it's just the timing's weird. But as my first reaction when Glazier put the information, I'm like, are you bleeping kidding me? What?
Right.
Then as the day went along, you and I started looking into it. Okay, it made more sense. It definitely did. And I know there's conspiracy theories. Oh, was this forced on him? I don't think so. Based on what we've heard, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean it doesn't sound like. Listen, like we've been upfront when we found out. Many years ago, I think we've talked about this on our podcast when Doug fired Mike Groh as his offensive coordinator and Carson Walsh as his wide receivers coach a day after he said he was not making any staff changes. We detailed that's because Doug didn't want to fire those guys. That was forced upon him, and it was tried again a couple of years ago with Press Taylor as his offensive coordinator. But that time, Doug stood his ground and said, no, I'm not going to fire my offensive coordinator. And then he wound up unemployed. So we've gone through that, right?
Yes.
I will say I'm a little surprised, and I don't know what this means for Nick Sirianni's, just his reputation in the coaching fraternity and future. Yep. I'm a little surprised that he does not defend a guy that he hired a little better. So that to me says that Nick, if what we're hearing is true, that he's on board with this, with him and Howie, they're in sync with this. That's fine. That tells me that Nick is sort of also trying to cover his butt a little bit and really believes that like he has to make this move out of desperation to see if it's better. Like it's hard to convince me that this defense is going to all of a sudden be so much better when
I
we
know.
all know it's a personnel driven industry. I mean, coaches matter, but I mean, so it surprises me. And I don't think as a coach, you want to develop a reputation, especially when you're a successful one who's going to have to replace coordinators and coaches quite a bit. You don't want to develop a reputation as a guy who will not even see your career through before the end of the year. You know, I mean, it's one thing if you're an owner firing a coach, right? There's only 32 head coaching jobs. You can have that reputation like David Tepper does, but somebody's going to go take that Carolina Panthers job. It's a great job, but I don't think you want to be. Yeah, there's more coordinator jobs and there's more now assistant head coach and good titles to have. That if you develop a reputation as a head coach who does not defend or stick through the hard times with a guy that you hired that year, that could be problematic. It might not be. It just surprises me because coaches generally tend in these situations to want to defend their guy. At least that's my experience.
Well, Nick has done a really good job of doing that this
Mm-hmm.
season, but again, on Tuesday, he denies anything's going to happen. Now, one thing I'll say, and I've just studying Sirianni, he wants to control the information gets out. When this story from ESPN got it about what happened on Saturday? Something. There was it Hurts being at what was it or no, there was something that got out
Mm-hmm.
and Sirianni. Slay's surgery. I'm sorry, Slay's surgery. Okay.
Right.
He seemed watching because I watched the video on YouTube. They put all the press conferences up there and watching it. He just didn't. He looked like perturbed that it got out. It seemed like again. I'm just going by body language, and you've
Uh-huh.
seen this. He wants to kind of control what gets out, knowing full well he knows stuff's going to get out because they'd rather it not get out until the game, obviously, or not get out at all,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be, and that's why he likes to say, he wants early in the week he does it like every once in a while he's good at not good, but every once in a while he gives stuff out, but more often than not he wants to wait till he gives anything out
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't want to get. He talks about the competitive advantage because that's what my read on his facial expression. But I did. Is that why he wasn't truthful on Tuesday? Because again, do they mean to tell us that he didn't know Tuesday? I mean, come on, really?
Yeah, I mean,
Or if
yeah,
it was in the works, it
yeah,
wasn't done yet. I could be done.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see his response when he's asked about it after the game on Sunday.
Oh,
Of
the
course, he'll
first
be asked
question,
about it. Yeah.
right? Wouldn't you ask that if you're there? Would you not say, okay, so Nick, you told us Tuesday that nothing's going to happen,
Yep.
and then clearly something happened. What did you know then? And he's going to have some kind of answer. It's a shame. I've been a fan of his, but this is you got to question the stuff. This our job, is in the media is to question. Fans deserve better,
Yeah.
but what fans care about most is the defense playing well, and we'll see what happens.
100%. I'll bring up the rare instance where this has happened around the NFL to present how a positive can come about this. But just to follow up on what you said, I mean, if the Eagles win 52-0 tonight, or if they lose 52-0 tonight, the first question has to be
Yes.
about what he said and what happened and the whole situation. So 2012, Adam, the Baltimore Ravens fell to 9-4, which is still a really good record after 13 games, and they lost 31-28 to Washington. They scored 28 points, all right, but they lost the game, and they actually had 359 total yards in that game, amazingly. All those points that they scored were offensive points. They fired their offensive coordinator, Cam Cameron, and replaced him with Mike Caldwell. This is 2012.
Jim Caldwell.
Say that again?
Jim Caldwell, not Mike.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Jim Caldwell, not Mike
Yeah.
Caldwell, not the current defensive coordinator for the and former Eagles linebacker, yeah, he's with the Jaguars. So they fired, Cam Cameron, hired or promoted Jim Caldwell, and then they won the Super Bowl that year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that was the case. So there's an example of a team that's considered a healthy organization, right? Very functional organization, always considered that like one of the better organizations in the league, firing a guy. And I think that was his first season for Cam Cameron as offensive coordinator, firing him at a time where they had a winning record and were probably in first place in their division at the time, and lo and behold, they won the Super Bowl. So there's some sort of, I don't want to call it precedent because I don't want to make it
Yeah.
seem like this happens all the time, but there is an example of, if you Joe Banner says this to us all the time, right? We'll probably have him on soon for Patreon.
Yep.
Joe Banner has always said, we've asked him about certain coaching, like, throughout the years, and he's always said, if you make a mistake, it's more important to recognize that mistake quickly and act upon it, no matter how bad the optics are, than to let it linger. And I understand that side of the story. But if that's the tack that the Eagles are taking, we made a mistake, let's correct it now while we still have a chance, while we think we can win a Super Bowl. I still question then Sean Desai. I know you said he has a 3-year contract, but it's hard for me to believe he's going to be back next year.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not, again,
Yeah.
to be clear, I'm not saying that the reason why they would fire him because he has a 3-year deal.
No,
That's
I
not what I'm
know,
saying.
but it's like that shouldn't be the holdup here, right? Like you shouldn't
Sure,
have him
no,
sit
it
out because of
shouldn't
that.
be.
Right.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be. No, in fact, the example that I said to Joe was when he talked about it was they fired Rob Straczynski, who was a hot name around the NFL back then.
Yep.
And my reporting then, I would never forget it. Rob Straczynski is one of the nicest people ever, and I hated to put it out that his command, he just couldn't reach the players. He's too nice of a guy, I guess the best way to say it. And Joe and I weren't really friendly then. Just Joe, my reporting then that they knew it, just like you said, just like you put it out here, that they knew it. Why belabor it? You just got to suck it up. Okay, you made a mistake, just correct it. And unfortunately, Joe was fired along with Mike Lombardi some months later. But you're right. When you know it's not right, why wait?
Right.
But they better be right. They better be right because this is Patricia doesn't have background in the Fangio defense. And I get it. He's defensive coach. He's been with them since February. He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's definitely strange. This whole thing. It was kind of like to wrap my hands around it. Um, I'm just interested to see how he's going to react, as you said, after tonight's game, no matter how well or badly the game goes. We're going to get into when the injury updates, man. They got some major challenges to be able to win this game tonight.
Yeah. Well, so let's get into injuries. Well, and let's put a bow on this Matt Patricia Sean Desai thing this way. This is me editorializing. This is me now just saying, here's how I view this situation.
Okay.
Matt Patricia's, you can feel free to agree, disagree, you can counter. Matt Patricia's job is to not get the back end of this defense to play better. It is to figure out a way to get this defense, which is built upon the pass rush, to hit and harass quarterbacks and get them on the ground again, because that will make the back end better. And that's how this defense is supposed to operate. It's we've brought this up. They have the least amount of third down sacks in the NFL. That's almost incomprehensible given how they're built and the talent that they have in the trenches. So I would say Matt Patricia's job, if he's going to save this defense, is to figure out a way to get more pressure on the quarterback in a way that hasn't been happening.
Yeah, honestly, I feel bad for Desai. I'm not. It's not for us to judge whether it's fair. It's just surprising.
Yeah.
But again, just to finish off, kind of the way I see it, the more we checked into it, like I we talked to some people have some theories. We're not going to get into that how this went down because I don't think it's.
Yeah.
You never know with this stuff what the truth is, and then over the series of days and weeks, you go, oh my gosh, this is. We find out different stuff, and then we get it confirmed. We go, wow, it's not quite what we thought in the beginning. Everybody has their opinion, but the bottom line is, look, if it works, great. Okay, you nailed it. Their pass rusher's got to be better. It starts with it, and with this organization, it's always about the upfront. The upfront marries the secondary, like it did last year. Oh my gosh, did it?
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing I'll say is, and this is not a criticism to Sai, but I found it comical. All the Gannon haters, the percentage of people who hated Gannon that went to Twitter and said, like, "Geez, man, we should have said what we said about Gannon. I guess he was pretty good." We're not taking sides here. I had my criticism of Gannon. We all did. But you look at where they finished, top 5 in just about every important category. Number 1 in sacks, pressure numbers were ridiculous. People get in this town, they want you to rush and pressure and blitz. But bottom line is the lack of discipline for the last 6 or 7 weeks has been pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
On the big plays that they're giving up, the numbers, Geoff, are just sickening if given up. But this is not a panacea right here. It's kind of like I don't want to say it's a dart throw. It's thought out, and obviously it's been on their mind. One thing to add before we move on here: these things are never done within 24 hours. Okay, this didn't work. Let's fire the guy or re-sign him. It doesn't
Right.
work. It's a series of weeks and discussions. I, I know the way these work, and you and I have talked to so many personnel people and GMs and head coaches, and you just don't do it on a whim. It's always thought out, and that's where it's at.
Yeah, and I'll leave people with this on this. If I were Brian Johnson tonight and going forward, I'd be on high alert because this offense has also been sporadic. It's been turnover plagued, and in their last game against Dallas, didn't even score a touchdown. So we'll see what happens there going forward.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, let's get into the injury update. So obviously, Jalen Hurts, last time we talked to the people on a pod, it was about, he was questionable. Yes, he had this illness. Clearly took a turn for worse. He didn't even travel.
He wasn't. No, actually, he wasn't questionable. He was added.
Oh,
no,
that's
no,
right.
no, no, no. Our last. When did we do our last pod? Thursday,
Friday morning.
Friday morning.
You're right. He wasn't questionable.
No, he wasn't anything yet. In fact, they added him. Remember Saturday missing.
Right.
Just to correct you.
Yes, thank you. So, but now it's obviously he was downgraded. He flew to Seattle by basically on his own. So you can look at this two ways. It's hard to imagine you fly out all the way to Seattle by yourself 6.5 hours to not play. But as I understand it, he wasn't feeling great, and I think what helps this situation, we'll see, is that it's a night game. If it had been like a normal Sunday game or even a earlier game, I know originally it was. That's a great point. If this had been a Sunday game, I don't think he would have been able to play. So the fact that it's a night game may give him a better opportunity to get out there and play.
Yeah. So look, flu's going around. We don't know exactly what he's dealing with. The Cowboys had it. In Glazer's report Sunday, it was interesting. He said he talked to McCarthy before the game. And Jay threw in something like it kind of disrupted their timing or whatever, maybe practice schedule or just guys not being there for game planning. And they were terrible on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we'll see. You don't like that. He didn't practice. Hurts didn't practice Saturday, which was their last of the week. And obviously didn't participate in the walkthrough on Sunday. So you worry about that. And obviously, if he can't play, it's Marcus Mariota, who we all know, not a secret. He did not have a very good training camp. And preseason was shaky. And then obviously they've got the kid from Stanford, McGee, Tanner McKee, is it? Tanner McKee, right. So he's got a big arm. It showed real well in training camp. Excuse me, in preseason, surprisingly. Looked great against Baltimore. So that's where that's at. I mean, you just never know with I remember when looking into it, someone said to me, maybe he'll be like Jordan when he played against Utah, when he played I just thought it was funny. A friend of mine said that. Yeah. What's that?
The Eagles could only hope. That would be great.
Yeah, I was just a friend of mine in scouting with another team. We were just talking about the game and what I thought of the Eagles, and he goes, "Well, now that information's out on Hurts, maybe he'll be like Jordan." I'm like, "Oh, you never know," because for those of us who play sports, you never know sometimes you play whether golf, tennis, hoops. Sometimes it makes you concentrate better. Who knows? But
yeah,
we'll see if he has energy. We'll see.
Well, as I've said about other players before, and this is not a knock on the player, but just the situation. If Tanner McKee has to enter this game for the Philadelphia Eagles tonight, that is not a good thing. It is a world of problem for the Philadelphia Eagles. I remember saying that about Brett Toth once against the Ravens, and sure enough, he had to enter the game, and it was not a good game for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was like the fourth string tackle, and he had to play. So
I couldn't believe it. When you said that, I remember bringing up the next show. I said, I can't believe you jinxed the Eagles. Exactly what happened. Yeah. Because, if you see the guy who should be playing in there, it's generally not a good thing.
No, definitely. All right. So there are three other starters who are not going to be able to play. One of them on offensive side is Cam Jurgens. He's got the pectoral injury. He's not going to be able to go. You got to think that Tyler Steen would be the next man up. They kind of made it seem throughout the week, Adam, that we got Steen, we got Opeta, they almost sort of try to leave it guessing. But the last time we saw them play without Cam Jurgens, we saw the debut of Tyler Steen, who did some good things in his debut.
Yeah, he was the last guy to start. Peta did, and then Steen started, and Peta started being inactive. And Steen, remember, was drafted to be their right guard of the future. So we'll see what happens, obviously, because next year, if this thing's going to roll a little bit, if Kelsey finally retires, Jurgens is the center, and then Steen's the right guard, presumably.
Yes.
As we said the last show, you never know based on what happened with Jason Peters and Lane Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know how these things are going to work out. And then Zach Cunningham, unfortunately, is going to miss the second game of the season. The hamstring's behind him, but it's now with a knee problem. He is 29 years old. You worry about that. And Slay had a cleanup on his knee. Remember, he missed a game earlier this season with a knee issue.
Mm-hmm.
They fully expect him to be back for the playoffs. Whether he's back for like the last game of the season, nobody knows. He's an older player. You worry about this stuff, but he's been very durable in his career. He's been a gamer, no question about it. He's been able to play through a lot of stuff. Generally minor, but then again, look, he's been a pretty good player for them. So now with Patricia calling the plays, who knows who we see? This is the thing: we have no frame of reference because he wasn't running their defense before this. So does he favor any of these young corners? The logical, and our Andrew DeCecco talked to in his diary with Eli Ricks. Andrew said what? Eli said wasn't doing nickel this week. He was at outside corner, right?
Right. So Eli Ricks very likely will play on the outside. Now, will he start? I don't know. Will he play most of the snaps? I don't know. The way they've been rotating, now that might have been just a Sean Desai thing. Maybe Matt Patricia says we're better with just one guy in a spot. So we'll see who it is. I don't think you can discount Keely Ringo. For whatever reason, he popped up on the field last week when they had to play dime because they had injuries to both Slay and Reed Blankenship. So that messed up. Bradbury had to move inside to play tight ends because Byard couldn't do that because he had to play safety because Blankenship was out. And so Ringo came in to play outside. So we will see. But those are the three guys: Ringo, Job, and Eli Ricks. Could be all, could be one, could be a combination of them. But either way, it's not a great situation, but you have to hope one of them gets in there and can show you some competency over the long. I mean, these guys are gonna have to face either Lockett or Metcalf. So just like we're talking about how this is a very difficult draw for Matt Patricia to save the team. That's tough for one of these or any of these kids to have to do also.
Yeah, no question. It's Job got demoted weeks ago. Remember, he was their third outside corner. Then Ricks was sort of taking it over. Then Ricks has this sharing nickel role or helping Roby out, give him some time off from snaps. And he took one part of it and Roby the other. Then Ringo, we only had one defensive snap all season until last week in 22. It's because they have a new play caller who you throw it all out the door. No one has any idea. And then the other one is, of course, Cunningham being out, Shaq Leonard's going to have to start. They can't go to the Van Sumer, and they just can't do that. I mean, I'm sorry. This is if it was the off season, you could start trying that. But Shaq Leonard, look, they brought him in here for a reason. They're down to the nitty gritty at depth. They don't have it anymore, so he's going to have to play. Let's not forget that Nakobe Dean was a starter week one. Man, things have really changed, and it's just a shame. But this is what they're dealing with it. I was talking about this at Fox Sports Radio. The number one issue for teams, the so-called Super Bowl hangover, is absolutely injury. Talking to teams about this, it's injury, it's age. Then there's some miscellaneous things which you can get into in another time. But injury is the big one. I'm not saying they're not going to get back, but if they don't, injury is going to be it.
Yeah,
it has to be.
Definitely. Now we do it like good news. There is good news. We can say, hey, Reed Blankenship, back from the concussion, and that's really good, cleared everything. So that's excellent news because they needed all the depth at safety and of course a starter. And then the guys who are on the injury report now are off. Julio Jones, Dallas Goedert, with the forearm fracture, Jack Stoll with the knee, Grant Calcaterra with the ankle, Fletcher Cox with the groin. We're all off the injury report. No game status designation. So good to go. That's good.
Yeah, that's a positive for sure. But it's going to rain, and we'll finish this off. It's going to rain, but the thing we've seen, first of all, the Eagles have shown the ability to score in the rain. Number one. Number two, there's be the next to no win. I'm interested to see. We got some interesting information on a stat breakdown. It's interesting on the way that both teams look at their offenses. But the bottom line is this is a new beginning. It had such intrigue, as you said, to start the show. It has such intrigue to see how Patricia's going to call the game here. It's not like he called him in the preseason. We have no idea what to expect. We'll learn more about this. We'll have more tonight, but this is fascinating.
All right, last thing, the Seahawks injuries. Now, this is really fascinating, right? Like their injury report, they're listing a bunch of guys as questionable who didn't practice all week, and they're not all veterans. I mean, this includes the rookie corner, top 5 pick, Devin Witherspoon. It includes linebacker Nick Ballore. It includes their safety, Jamal Adams. He is a veteran. And their quarterback, of course, Geno Smith, dealing with the hip pointer that kept him out the week before. Drew Lock had to start that game. So these guys are all listed as questionable, and yet I don't think any of them practice this week. Am I correct on that?
Okay, let me a couple corrections. It's a
one of them might have been limited.
Geno Smith has a groin, not a hip pointer. Devin Witherspoon has a hip pointer.
That's right, groin for Geno. Thank you.
Right, and also let's correct Pete Carroll. Well, he corrected it. He first said ribs for Witherspoon, then he corrected it. But I love Pete in that he's one of the few head coaches that puts the injury stuff out there, kind of like Andy Reid does. Andy's great. He's been even better with the Chiefs than he was here with Philly. Jamal Adams didn't practice. You're right, though. Geno practiced, but limited.
Limited.
Witherspoon
right.
didn't practice at all with a hip pointer. That's a tough thing because you got to be able to take contact on that. That's big because, as we'll talk about tonight, if he doesn't play, this hurts their nickel package. And then Jamal Adams has been basically a linebacker. It's been obviously a major disappointment for Seattle. And Ballore's one of the highest paid special teams players in the league. I'm glad you brought him up. That's a big one. Now cleared to play. Jordan Brooks with the ankle. Darrell Taylor's one of their edge rushers with an abdomen injury. But man, if Witherspoon doesn't play, oh boy, that would be big.
Yeah. Very fascinating. We're not used to, in these parts, not practicing, you're questionable, and then you play. That's weird. Yeah, so we'll see. Sure. We'll see how it works out. But that we could end up in a situation with Marcus Mariota versus Drew Lock. Who would have thought that just a few days ago? So if you think your defensive coordinator is an issue,
and we'll know more. In fact, tonight at 5 Eastern, the inactives, by the way, will be out around 6:50, 6:45. And I'm sure there'll be some reporting on it. But look, the reporters will be there. They'll be watching as long as Hurts is warming up. Man, you got to think if Hurts is warming up, he's playing because he'll have the energy to do so. It's not like it's like Geno Smith has to show he can move around with a groin injury. But that's big. Like because he clearly was not ready after warming up last week. You can't have that be an issue. Either you could play or you can't play. And Drew Lock is healthy. So we'll see what happens.
Definitely. All right. Again, 5:00 tonight, pregame show, me, Adam, Greg Cosell, Jason Devant, postgame show, me, Adam, and former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor. So a lot more content coming to you as the Eagles get ready to face the Seattle Seahawks tonight in Seattle. And with Seattle on a 4-game losing streak, the Eagles on a 2-game losing streak, it's going to be an exciting game. There's a lot to cover.
Yep, for sure.
That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.